Good afternoon, everybody. I have been wondering what I was going to say today for the last few days, which is kind of, I would say, ironic to an extent, because the number of scares that we've had for my dad in terms of death scares have just been so many, to the point that at some point I would have dreams of this moment, standing before people and talking at his funeral on a daily basis, starting in 2017 after the election period, 2022 during the sickness. So to actually be here, it's kind of, I don't know if surreal is the right word, but it's just, I don't know, it's very weird. But what I want to say is, I will not read what I have as a tribute, because like I say in my tribute, summary is not my strong suit. I did not write it from beginning to end. I don't know how my brothers were able to do that, and have themes. I've just been reading their tributes and they're pretty good. Just but mine, I came up with just things he used to tell me, and this actually wrote at I think 2 a.m. The night before the program was due, and I couldn't sleep because at that point I still didn't have a tribute. But what I will do is I'll just talk off the cuff, and so that I don't keep you here for too long, I've just jotted a few things down that I will talk about, just some things about my dad. So one thing I will say is a lot of people, I think almost everybody I meet, who when they learn, oh, you're Chebukati'S daughter, the first question they ask me is, how is it like being Chebukati'S daughter? And I never really have an answer to that, because the Chebukati, most of you know, you knew from 2017. That was just about 8 years ago. I mean, before, how was it like being raised by him? I mean, I was a whole adult before that. He was a whole other human being, a whole other life, you know, before he became chair of IBC. So what I will do is I never usually answer that question, but today I'll answer that question. I think it's the best, a befitting moment to do that. So one thing I can say about my dad, he was a very involved father, very, very involved. He wanted to every single day, it was always, how was your day, what did you do in school, what did you learn, are you actually improving on what you're working on, what is your goal, what is your plan. Every Christmas we spent together, every New Year's we had to plan about what we want to do the next few years, and he always pushed us and pushed us and pushed us. It was not just, oh, get the grades, it was, how can I help you? He used to ask us when we had to have our New Year's meetings, how can we help you, achieve your goals? So that's, I think, one thing I was going to say. Two, he expected excellence. He expected excellence, he used to say he expected excellence because he gave us the best of everything. He wanted, so he grew up in Bungoma, then met my mom, who's a Nairobi city girl, and then they moved to Mombasa. My mom, I let her have her tribute, speak to her tribute, but I think my dad always wanted better. He never wanted us to go lower. For him, it was just give us the best, give us the best, give us the best at all times. So that's something I want to remember. And I remember at some point I told him, last year I got to spend a lot of time with him when he was mostly home due to illness. And I remember I told him that if only I could just be like half of you, I'd be great in this world, and he was like, what are you talking about, Rachel? You're not going to be half of me, you're not going to be full of me, you're going to exceed my expectations. I can already see it, I know it. And that's what he expected on a daily basis. He expected us to do better, be better. It was always about reaching for the sky. And he used to say, reach for the sky. If you do fall, then you're not too, at least you're not falling below to mediocrity. You're falling at a level of, above average. One other thing, reaching to the sky, I recall when I was finishing university, before I go to university, I wanted to study. I was a golfer. I played a lot of golf. My parents introduced me to the game. There were not, I think I was the only girl who played golf, who had a handicap in the whole of Mombasa at that time. The entire time I played from like maybe 9 to 18. So I didn't really have friends to play with. The boys were very noisy on the course, so I would avoid that. So the people I played with are actually my family. I played with my dad and my mom and my brother. Every Sunday we had family golf Sundays. In the morning we'd go to church and then we played golf in the afternoons. And then we would also play, in competitions as a team together. So initially golf was just for fun, and then it reached a point where somebody in Nairobi noticed there's actually a girl in Mombasa who's actually good. So then my parents started taking it more seriously, investing more in my training. I recall my dad. I was asked to represent. I was selected, to represent Kenya at the British Junior Open. And at that point, my parents felt like, at that point, South Africa was the place where people would go for training. But the question was, who would go? With Rachel, she can't go to South Africa alone, a young teenage girl, for 3 months. By the way, my brother was allowed to go alone, but I wasn't at the same age, but anyway. So at that point, I think my mom had some big conference she was handling, so she couldn't go with me. My dad was managing partner at Kutu, his law firm at that point, and he had just become the managing partner. But he told them, this is important, and he said, I'm going to be away. So he left, and for 3 months we spent the whole time in Johannesburg. We just were in a hotel room. Every morning he woke up, took me to the course, to the range. We practiced 6 a.m. to the robust program, 6 a.m., 6 p.m. He was my caddy when we went out onto the course. Basically just hung out with me the whole time. So I think that's one of the things. He really wanted me to be great. And I recall when I told him that I want to be a lawyer, him actually saying to me that, why would you want to be a lawyer when you can be the next, Michelle Wee was the person, was the golfer, or the next Tiger Woods for everybody else. But I really liked Michelle Wee at that point because she took on the boys, the men, in the professional tournaments. So he really he was like, no, don't go to my level. Become an advocate. Go beyond, think about going to the US, becoming a golfer, whatnot. But I love golf, and I think I really just loved golf because I just enjoyed the family time. But I knew that for me, the professional life was not where I wanted to go. I wanted to be a lawyer, and main part of the reason I wanted to be a lawyer was my father. He always involved me in everything. Like the number of times he'd take me to court with him, and when the holidays, I'll just sit behind. I thought it was really cool, to be an advocate in litigation. Until I became an advocate and started practicing and doing litigation, and realized that I think I prefer commercial law more. But he inspired me, I think, in literally every aspect of my life. So another thing I've written down here is with regard to him being Bukusumani, there's this concept that, as a woman you should sit back, not speak, all that. Unfortunately, I'm half Bukus, half Bunyore, so on the Bunyore side, the women do not know how to sit back. But on top of that, my dad was not a Bukusu man in the sense of that he did not only let my mom speak up, he pushed her to speak up, pushed her to the limits, pushed me to the limits. I recall when a very particular time when we had my grandparents over at our house in Mombasa. We grew up in Mombasa, and my granddad and some of the elders were sitting outside in the garden, you know, around on chairs and talking. And then I was about maybe like 7 or I don't know, maybe like 10 or something. And I just went and pulled a chair and sat next to them. And everyone's really laughing. And I think my grandfather, or is it one of the other elders, said something about, no, you should go back. And I was like, no, let her sit. And not only did he say, let her sit. When we went back into the house later on that evening, I was telling my mom the story of how I came, sat there and crossed my legs, you know, and crossed my hands like and that memory actually brings back another memory, which is of when the team of the elections, his advocates team of elections, Mr. Kumbo spoke on their behalf. The entire team, I think the smaller team Mr. Kumbo mentioned, he asked to stand. I don't think that you guys had my brothers and I, but we clapped for you because you guys were great friends to my dad, thank you. But the story here is that at that time when they were preparing the election petition, 2022, I was very much involved because I was around, and I recall sitting in some of those meetings. And the very first time I sat and just, you know, giving my opinion and contributing. And my dad went back to my mom to say, you know, Rachel is there talking to very, very senior lawyers like their peers. But basically, he just pushed me to not feel like I cannot do anything. He always used to say, people are just people. You know, you can walk into a room, it's just a matter of confidence. And he pushed me to just have that confidence, which he has. He has this I don't know if to call it overconfidence, which I think we partly also learned from the golf course. Just set your mind to something, say you want to do this and do it. And that's how we play golf together as partners. We would literally just take the risk. It was always about taking the risk. We never took the safe shot. Even if it made more sense to take the safe shot, we always took the risk. Because we'd always say, we take the risk, it goes bad, we'll recover. And we'll still recover. So, and that also ties into what I have said in, I think I mentioned my tribute. He always used to tell me, giving up is not in our vocabulary. Whenever I'd have an issue, whether it was at work or whatnot, my dad always used to say, Rachel, giving up is not in our family vocabulary. Like, you have to keep going, like giving up is not an option. And not only did he say it, he lived it. And he lived it not only during the election period. And when I say election period, it's not just 2017 and 2022. 2007, when my dad stood for elections, it was also a very difficult time for our family, because I recall, and like it was for a lot of other Kenyans, but I recall being at home as cousins, and my parents, my uncles, aunties were all up country. They'd gone to support my dad, who was running for MP at Sabata, as it was called then. And it took them almost, I don't know, in my head I think it's like 2 to 3 weeks to come back home because there were no flights. It's a very difficult time. You know, people were being stopped, so anything could have happened. So the interesting thing is, I don't know whether it's a coincidence, but the fact that my dad went through that experience and also lost his election in 2007, which he felt was unfair. He didn't feel like he lost, but anyway, I hope I can see that being a news headline. So because of that, he and I had a conversation about, because when the IBC job was advertised, the very first time I recall, very few people applied, so it was not, no one was shortlisted. So when the second advert came, because my dad and I had always had conversations about like elections, politics, international affairs, we'd watch CNN together, we'd watch Al Jazeera late into the night. He was like me, could barely, sleep, so I'd find him watching, like in 3 in the morning I wake up, I'd find him watching CNN. I loved Al Jazeera, so we'd always have that. So when it came to that, when he started considering that job, applying for IBC, I recalled telling him, in my opinion, you're the best person to take this up because you went through it, you have been a victim, of stolen elections. Let me just put it out there. And not only that, whenever we spoke about it, he would always say, I would do this differently. I would do this differently. I would do this differently. So it's like, this is your chance, do something, about it. So I think you should do it. Like I said, our home is very democratic. It's like, but it's the kind of democracy that you find in Security Council, because we all have a say. We'd have family meetings. Anyone can call a family meeting, but of course my parents have veto power. So on any decision we make as a family. So for instance, on whether he should proceed to actually put in his application for the IBC job, he asked us for our opinion, because it was at that time, there was a lot surrounding that job, so he asked us for our opinion, and that was my opinion. You have all these great ideas. I think you should apply them. Excuse me. And I know at that point he was also considering judge. My dad had always seen like the Court of Appeal, or as the epitome, or as the epitome of his career, being a judge. At that time it was Court of Appeal. So, but he put in his application and he got it. And like I say, him putting it in was, okay, he in my opinion, he was the best placed person for that. I lost my train of thought, I'm sorry. I was talking about not giving up. So, in one way he did not give up is during his sickness. So when he was first diagnosed, I remember I was at work, it was like maybe 5:30 p.m. and he called me. And then he told me, call your mother now. I never had him say it like that, call your mother now. Like, my dad is very soft-spoken. Even when he's annoyed at me or anyone, he will not have to say anything actually sometimes. You just be disappointed in yourself, and apologize. But he said that, and I called my mom, and then next thing I know, he has this brain tumor. It might be cancerous. We have to, get him a surgery. That was early May. That was April 30th, 2023. He had his surgery in the first week of May, 2023. And at that point, just before, on the day that we had found out his diagnosis, I was set to go to Uganda for a petroleum conference. And I think it was my first international conference from work. So I was really excited about it, and I was supposed to be a speaker there. And I remember saying, no, I can't do this, I can't go, I have to be there for you during the surgery. And my dad insisted, no, you must go. You must go. You must go to the conference. So we agreed. My mom and my brother will be there for accompany him out for the surgery out of the country, because he insisted I must go. And but at the same time, I said, even if I go, I'm not ready. I don't have the mental space to actually prepare for it. He said, no, Rachel, you better prepare. You know, you're not just representing yourself, you're representing our family. And that's how we used to have, that's how we move, you know. Whatever we do out there, it's not just me, it's our family, you know. So I went, and of course the whole time I was worried. And I was with, I don't know if she's here, one of my colleagues, who we prepped basically most of the night. And then I did my presentation. Meanwhile, my dad was having his surgery. He finished his surgery. After 2-3 days, he was able to talk, which the doctors found remarkable. As always, he's an overachiever. So after 2-3 days, the first conversation I'm able to have with him now after surgery, and I asked him, how are you? How are you feeling? Like, how does it feel to have something, you know, your head's removed from your head? And the first thing he asked me was, how was your presentation? I was like, it's okay. Like, did you prepare for it? You know? I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah. I hope you made the family proud. I was like, yeah, I did well. So my dad, he wanted us to proceed with our lives, to still continue doing better, being better. During his entire sickness, he was given a few months to live, but I recall him saying, this sickness is not going to beat me, I'm going to fight it, and he did. So he opened a whole home gym. He was in the gym every morning, every evening. He was taking his medicine time. He was, you know, doing everything, eating healthy, and then he beat it for a while until it recurred again in November of 2023. And the interesting thing is, by November, he had already planned all these international conferences he was supposed to go for. And then we asked him, so what do we do now that, are you still gonna go? He said, yeah, why not? He's still going to go. Because the doctor said it's recurred, but it's not big enough to be removed, you know? So he decided to continue his life. And what we said as a family is somebody will accompany him for each of them. So I recall I accompanied him to Portugal, and that was one of the first ones he did after his brain surgery. And after he finished the presentation, which he did remarkably well, I just saw him very tired. And I think at that point, that's when I started to realize the chemotherapy is actually taking a toll on him, and I didn't realize it. But despite that, you couldn't tell, no one could tell, you know? So he always kept pushing himself, and that's what he did. Pushed himself and lived for over 20 months, despite the doctors telling him he only had 4 to 6 months to live. So again, just kept pushing himself. And his positivity, his drive, his confidence is what pushes me as well to just continue doing better, to live to the expectations that I have set for myself. And towards his last days, you know, the way, like like I said, we've had many death scares. Leave alone the elections. It was April 2023, and then around October 2023, I was with him. I was home because Mom had traveled. So in the middle of the night, he woke up and was a bit stiff. So we were told that was another problem. Apparently, he was having a seizure. At that point, I didn't know, but somehow my brother and I Googled that when this happens, you're supposed to increase this anti-seizure medicine, and we did. And we went to hospital the next day, the doctor said, you guys actually, like you did what I would have said you'll have done. So that was another scare. April 23 was another scare when he had to do his second surgery. Then there was December 2023. And then there was more recently, February 2020. Sorry, it was December 2024, April 2024, December 2024, and more recently February 2025, when he was admitted in hospital, again at ICU. I think this was like his 3rd or 4th time in ICU. My brother and I was like so confident, like he's been in, he's been out. So I was actually selected, I was not in the country at the time. I'd gone for a fellowship, UN fellowship that I was selected for, and I was debating between myself, should I go, should I not go? And I asked my mom said, do what your heart feels. He was in ICU at the time. And then I asked my brother, what do you think? And he said, you know what, Daddy would have wanted you to go. And besides, the number of times he's been in and out of the ICU, I mean, he always scares us and then he comes back. So he's going to come back. So I left to Addis Ababa for a month, packed my stuff for 1 month, knowing that my dad would go into ICU, beat it, come back, and knowing that that's what he would have wanted me to do. And then one day after being there, I get the call from my mom in the evening. She didn't even need to say it. She just said, yeah, the hospital had called her and they want her to come in, and they were not telling her what they want her to come in for until she pushed them, until they mentioned it. So, the funny thing is, I didn't, as much as yes, he was sick, it didn't actually occur to me this day would actually come because of how confident he was in just pushing himself and on how confident he was in his will to live. The other day, my mom and I were having a discussion about maybe, I don't know, talk of universe or whatever, maybe I needed to leave the country for him to go. I don't know. Because, I don't know. It just, yeah, because it's not making sense to me how I left. But at that point, I just knew he was going to be okay. But then he wasn't. So, yeah, but what I want you to take, I guess, away from this, and for me, I think to my dad, he was not just a father, he was literally the best father anybody could ever ask for. The best father any daughter could have ever asked for. I'm so grateful for him. It's sad losing him at 63. Of course, you want him to be there for you in your future. You want him to be there to see your grandchildren. That's one thing my brothers and I guess were not able to give him before he passed. But my future children, I know for sure, and my future nieces and nephews will know his name, they'll know his legacy, they'll know who he is. And I will, yeah. Sorry, I don't know how to conclude. I'll probably just keep going. So I'm just going to say to Daddy, I think rest well. As much as you have been sick for some time, you'd expect it to be, okay, I don't think it can be easier, but it's still hard. And I guess he needed to rest. Maybe I didn't take that into, consideration. I just wanted him to be here.